Working the night shift at a 24-hour gas station can be pretty dull. Not much happens after midnight in this little town. That's why I brought my tablet along to watch movies while keeping an eye on the place. It made the long, quiet hours go by faster. I'd prop it up on the counter and stream away, glancing up now and then to watch for any customers coming in. I never expected to catch something sinister on camera. It started out as just another slow Thursday night. I was midway through some cheesy horror flick, not really paying close attention to the screen. The tiny gas station was empty. That's when I noticed headlights pull up outside. A pickup truck parked at the outer edge of the lot, well away from the building. My first thought was that it seemed an odd place to park. There were plenty of open spots much closer, but I didn't think much of it. Late-night customers do weird things sometimes. I hit pause on my movie, waiting for whoever it was to come inside. But no one got out of the truck. It just sat there, headlights still on, angled away from the store. Minutes ticked by, and I started to get uneasy. Who just sits in a gas station parking lot at 2 a.m.? I considered calling out to them over the intercom, but something held me back. A gut feeling that I couldn't ignore. That nagging sense that something wasn't right. Trying not to appear obvious, I turned my tablet's camera to face out the large front windows, pretending to still watch my movie. But now I was really zooming in on the mystery truck. I hit record, just in case I caught anything strange. It took a moment for my eyes to make sense of the dark, blurry footage. The truck's cab was empty, no one sitting inside. So where was the driver? I felt my pulse quicken as I scanned the parking lot. It was too dim to see far, but I could just make out a shadowy figure standing next to the side of the building. Whoever it was, they were skinny, wearing baggy clothes and a baseball cap. They crept along the edge of the building, stopping under each window to peer inside. Searching, hunting. My breath caught in my throat. This person did not want to be seen. They clearly didn't know about the night security cameras. I wanted to run, to hide, but I forced myself to keep filming. This was important evidence something bad went down. The figure finished canvassing the perimeter and approached the locked front doors cautiously. That's when I noticed the small pry bar in their hand. They were trying to break in. I stood paralyzed behind the counter, terrified they'd notice me. Watching the screen, I saw them jam the pry bar into the door seam and lean back with all their weight. Thankfully, the door held, but they weren't giving up easy. Over and over they pried and yanked, trying every trick to pop the lock. Each time the door resisted, their frustration visibly grew, until finally, the glass front splintered with a crack. In that horrifying instant, I knew I had no choice. Gripping the camera tight, I sprinted to the back room and slammed the heavy metal doors shut. Then I pressed myself below the small window and frantically called 911. The dispatcher said police were on their way, but the intruder was already inside. I heard them stomping around, snarling angrily. They must have realized the store was empty, slamming freezers and knocking over displays in a violent rage. It felt like an eternity waiting, trying not to make a sound as the ransacking continued. Any second they could find my hiding spot. Finally, the blessed tones of police sirens split the air. I heard the intruder bolt for the broken front door, then silence. When the police arrived, I showed them the video footage that had captured the entire incident. That mysterious truck, the shadowy, lurking figure, every frame of their determined attempts to break in. The camera had caught more than I ever hoped for. Those chilling scenes brought the dark truth to light and probably saved my life. I'll never again brush off suspicious behavior as just another slow night. The dangers hiding in the darkness are all too real. It was just a normal Saturday when everything went wrong. I had stopped by the grocery store on my way home from running errands. As I walked in, I noticed new security cameras posted in the corners near the entrance. Chalking it up to the store, trying to prevent shoplifting, I grabbed a cart and went about my business. About 20 minutes later, I was waiting in the checkout line. Ahead of me was a man arguing with the cashier, claiming she had shortchanged him. Their voices grew more heated, the man insisting she owed him more money back. He kept pointing up at the camera above the register, saying it would prove he was right. The manager came over to try and defuse the situation, but the man wouldn't back down. That's when things turned violent. Still yelling about the camera footage, the man suddenly lashed out and slapped the cashier hard across the face. Shocked gasps came from the surrounding shoppers. Before anyone could intervene, the man slapped her again, grabbing a fistful of her hair. Chaos erupted. People were shouting, and the manager ran to pull the man away from the crying cashier. In the commotion, I felt an urge to flee the situation. I slipped away from my cart and rushed towards the exit at the front. I felt bad for the poor cashier, but I didn't want to get caught up in the mess. It wasn't until I got home that I realized my mistake. In my haste, I had forgotten to pay for my groceries still waiting in the cart. I basically shoplifted without even meaning to. But surely the cameras had recorded what happened. They would see I was just an innocent bystander scared off by the altercation. Still, I felt sick with worry, imagining police showing up at my door to arrest me at any moment. The next few days were agony. I was constantly on edge, expecting imminent consequences for my accidental crime. My mind spun out of control with how much trouble I could be in. I had never done anything unlawful in my life until that one panicked moment. About a week later, just when I was starting to breathe easier, there was a knock at my door. 2 police officers were there, asking to speak with me. My stomach dropped as they said there had been an incident at the grocery store, and they believed I was involved. I nervously tried to explain it had been a mistake, but they interrupted to say they had video evidence and had to take me to the station. I pleaded with them all the way to the police station, swearing I had just panicked and didn't mean to take anything, but they remained stoic, saying the cameras didn't lie, booking and fingerprinting me for shoplifting. They put me in a holding cell, saying I would await my bail hearing. Sitting in that cell, I was racked with guilt and fear over what would happen to me. I had never been arrested before. What would my family think? Would I have to go to jail over something that was an accident? It seemed wildly unfair that the violent man who assaulted the cashier probably walked free while I was the one being punished. After hours of spiraling anxiety, a guard came and unlocked my cell. He said I was being released and escorted me outside where my mortified husband was waiting. I later learned the police had reviewed more footage from multiple camera angles and could see I was clearly not shoplifting intentionally. Still, those hours caught on camera and accused of a crime I didn't mean to commit will haunt me forever. I don't know if I'll ever be able to comfortably walk into a store again. Working the night shift at a convenience store can be creepy enough as it is. But what happened to me last Thursday was on a whole other level. It started off like any other graveyard shift. It was just me, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, and the surveillance cameras watching my every move. Hardly any customers ever came in after midnight, so I usually just watched videos on my phone to stay awake. Around 2:30 a.m. I got up to grab some snacks from the back room. As soon as I stepped out from behind the counter, this awful chill went down my spine. I shook it off, figuring it was just the AC kicking in or something, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced up at the security monitors behind the counter, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Just empty aisles on a black and white screen. Still, I couldn't shake the uneasy vibe that had come over me. So I quickly grabbed a few bags of chips and headed back up front, keeping my eyes peeled for anything suspicious. As I sat back down on my stool, I noticed the cameras on the monitors were ever so slightly off. It was hard to pinpoint why, but their angles seemed just a tad different than usual, like someone had shifted them just an inch or two while I was in the back. I stared at the screens for a minute, trying to figure out if I was just imagining things. Everything looked normal, except when I focused on the camera pointing at the front counter. A chill ran down my spine again. The angle was centered directly on me, almost like someone had zoomed in. I shook my head, laughing at myself for being so paranoid over nothing. There was no way anyone could have tampered with the cameras. I was just tired and spooking myself. After the next hour passed uneventfully, I began to relax and think the whole camera thing must have been in my head. Until around 4 a.m. when I needed to use the restroom. As I got up from the stool again, that uneasy tingling returned. I looked back at the monitors, and sure enough, the camera over the counter had moved to track me across the store. My breath caught in my throat as I froze in place, staring at the screen. The camera was very slowly swiveling from side to side, following my every step towards the bathroom. Somehow, the security camera was moving on its own, like an invisible hand was controlling it remotely. I felt my pulse quicken, a knot forming in my stomach. This had to be some kind of sick prank, right? Some bored hacker messing with the cameras just to freak me out. I rushed to the restroom, keeping my head down to avoid the roving camera's lens. After finishing up in the restroom, I crept back towards the front counter as quietly as I could. The knot in my stomach tightened when I saw the camera on the monitor had moved yet again, angled right at the bathroom door in anticipation of my return. Someone was definitely watching me through the camera and moving it deliberately. I stared up at the actual device mounted near the ceiling, but it remained stationary. However, the camera feed on the monitors kept tracking me, the perspective zooming in and out. Panic started rising in my chest. Whoever was controlling the cameras had been spying on me all night long. I felt violated and completely exposed, even though they were just watching through a lens. I didn't know what to do. Running would only let them see me leave, but staying here with some peeping Tom's eyes on me was terrifying. I paced around the front area, keeping my back to the wall to avoid the camera's gaze. All the while, its movements followed me on the monitors, hovering and watchful. Those final 30 minutes of my shift felt like an eternity. I fixated on the clocks, willing time itself to move faster. Right before 6 a.m., I steeled my nerves, took a deep breath, and made a run for the front door. I heard the camera whirring as it struggled to keep up with my sudden movement. Bursting out into the morning dawn light, I finally felt free from its cold mechanical eye. I quit later that day, and haven't worked another night shift since. I never should have agreed to house sit for my brother while he was out of town. It was supposed to be an easy gig, just stop by once a day to water plants and collect the mail. But now I wish I had turned him down. If I had known then what I know now, I never would have set foot in that house. The first couple of days went smoothly. I'd swing by after work, tend to the plants, check for mail. The house was located in a nice suburban neighborhood, so I figured I didn't have anything to worry about. But on the third night, things took a turn. It was late when I arrived, nearly 10 p.m. I inserted the key into the front door lock and stepped inside. The house was dark except for a faint blue glow coming from the living room. As I made my way toward it, I realized the glow was from the TV, even though it was off. Strange, I thought. I shrugged it off and went about watering the plants. But as I turned to leave a bit later, some movement on the TV caught my eye. The screen showed 4 small boxes, each displaying a video feed of a different room. And one of those rooms was the living room I was standing in. My blood ran cold. This was a live video feed. Someone had installed security cameras throughout the house, and I was being recorded. I peered closer at the screen, looking for any sign of cameras. That's when I noticed the tiny lens peeking out from a hole in the ceiling lamp. My heart pounded. There had to be cameras hiding in plain sight all over the house. I got out of there as fast as I could, double-checking the doors were locked behind me. As I drove away, my mind was reeling. Who had access to those camera feeds? Why were they filming my brother's house? Were they watching me right now? I didn't return the next day, or the day after that. I wish I had gone straight to the police, but something held me back. Maybe it was fear of what they would find if they investigated the house and its creepy surveillance system. But the following week, my brother returned home and called me over right away. His usually tidy house was a mess, with furniture overturned and drawers flung open. He had been robbed. My blood turned to ice as I realized the chilling truth. Someone had been watching the camera feeds, waiting for the house to be empty before breaking in. And I'd been caught on tape, watering plants and unlocking doors, completely unaware I was being observed. Over the following days, more unsettling discoveries came to light. My brother told me he hadn't installed any security cameras. Someone else had. The police also informed us that the video equipment was running on a closed circuit feed. The only place those recordings could be viewed was inside the house. So someone had broken in once to set it all up, then returned at the right moment to rob the place, using the footage to monitor the house and my unsuspecting actions. I shuddered, imagining them sitting there, spying on me from some dark, unseen corner. The police swept the house but found no trace of the intruder. They told us the cameras had probably been recording for weeks before I ever set foot inside. Just thinking about some creep watching private moments in my brother's home made my skin crawl. Though there was no proof, I couldn't help feeling like I was the one who had led them right to the valuables they stole. Maybe they had been waiting for someone naive enough to let their guard down. No signs of forced entry were found. Only an unlocked door and me, obliviously watering plants on tape. It could have happened any time I was there. I cooperated fully with the police investigation, but the perpetrator was never found. My brother had to replace the locks and install a real home security system. As for me, I never house. Sad again after that. Just imagining being watched on some hidden camera still gives me chills. No neighborhood or house is as safe as you think. You truly never know who might be lurking, watching everything you do. I learned that lesson the hard way.